Welcome back to The Watch. Today we are talking about graphics and how realistic they can become. I have some opinions on this.
We all have opinions.
Because we're all gamers here, actually.
We are gamers.
Yes.
And so the new Unreal Engine has some crazy capacity. And there's been some video footage dropped of some kind of Counter-Strike kind of, game.
I'm a gamer, but it's some kind of Counter-Strike type of game. It's a very indie game.
I can tell what year you're born, Shad, because you always reference Counter-Strike as your shooter.
That's my shooter. That is.
So this is an
It's
indie.
still a thing.
It is, but like...
Oh, there's Call of Duty and Fortnite and stuff.
There's so many other games.
I've forgotten so what's the name?
Unrecorded.
So it's basically going to be I think it's a police officer.
Yep.
Who has a body camera on them, and then as they're running through, they're going to come across some very challenging circumstances, and the graphics they're insane. They help to draw you in.
Well,
to these very challenging scenarios.
The environment graphics are insane. I think the actual people models are they're more identifiable.
Well, there's a bit to talk about that with improvements in the graphics, because I've seen this. Like I saw this a few months ago. Hit the social media. How old do I sound? Hit socials. And there was direct interaction with the developer that I was watching sort of happen live in the chat. So there's some interesting things we can talk about where they're picking up, where the community is like, you missed a spot.
Nathan, I saw your reaction.
Or it's just funny. We're judging a game that isn't out yet.
Yeah.
Okay, good point.
That's the other thing too.
Yes.
Like if you look at every pre-release game trailer, especially I think of Watch Dogs back in the day, everyone was like, "It's amazing, it's so good," and then the game came out and it looked like trash compared to what it was before. And as well with here with the character models, this is made by like a small group of people with this is an early preview of the engine as well. So like in a few and so many things.
But just for those who haven't seen it, without playing it, do you want to just like bring that up on screen now? Yeah, and just like this just looks like a GoPro. It just looks like a GoPro.
But now, something to mention, it doesn't actually have this. What is it? They have this isn't actual gameplay footage. They usually have that in little text somewhere to say that this is like pre-rendered footage. They don't have this anywhere, so you would be led to assume that this is what the gameplay is going to look like.
Yeah, some people though have seen this and tried to claim that it's a fake video game. Like they thought that you're just using real footage, and then they show them walking through walls and clipping through things to prove that.
And they've also shown it in the development panel, so it's running in a smaller window, showing the code running at the same time. Yeah, and the guy was running it live on a stream.
Like this is real graphics, and
I'm curious where you stand on graphics, just in terms of games, just like normally.
So, as in, do I prefer more realistic or more stylized?
Graphic fidelity, things like that.
I'm a bit of both. I feel stylized has a lot more longevity, okay? But I've always, on the other side, loved more realistic, more immersive. Let's do it and bring it on.
No?
I think it all comes at a cost.
Graphics cards? They cost money?
Well, like legit, I think I always shoot for realism if that's the style of your game. If it's stylized, then go lean into that. But also, one of my gripes with the Unreal Engine is that they're trying to be so big and everyone has to spend like $4 or $5 just to play the what game recently got announced? I think it's actually the new Jedi Survivor game.
Yeah, which is...
like that. It's like they've pushed it so far that now no longer people can play it. So it's like, I think there's a level of graphic fidelity but also performance.
That doesn't, like for me, I've been around a bit, I'm getting old, but like every big new game, always like you might need an upgrade to be able to play it, and the upgrades come, people get it, and
I just think again we're like a bevel as well, where things are getting more expensive. Like the new GPU graphics from Nvidia, they're like $4,000 for like the top end ones, and you need like a second power supply. And people think you're putting like 2 power circuits in their house. Like it's getting kind of insane.
Okay.
So I'm probably the least gamer of the four of us here. The least game, you know what I mean. And all of the computers I've ever bought have always been RAM heavy rather than GPU heavy because they're usually workhorses. When I usually play games, I don't always play them on the highest graphics, so I kind of drool at the side of the mouth a little when I see stuff like this, and I really love it. But I also grew up in the same era as Shad, playing games that had to be stylized to look good, and I love that stylization. Like my graphics background says, oversaturate colors and make them pop and show me cartoon graphics and have a different frame rate between the animation and the character animation and the special effects animation, because that stylized change to look really different.
Again, graphics also depends on the type of game. Like, I think this game calls for realism because you want to feel like an actual cop going through a warehouse.
You say that, though, because one of the reasons why people love live action film is because they get to see their whatever, properties, their things that they love in the most realistic depiction, live action possible. And so I think a lot of people are going to flippin' love something that looks so realistic in a fantasy setting or sci-fi setting.
Well, it's really how well that this gets done, because you take something like Jurassic Park, which was designed specifically to look as real as possible, but using some tricks like lots of shadows and specific types of lighting that even today, like the original Jurassic Park, looks good. The way they've done this, the outside renders and the building renders look absolutely amazing. But I think you're right, the graphics...
They've picked the easiest stuff to make look real, which is dark places, spotlights, and like an overcast day.
Yeah.
Exactly. What's your take?
I personally... So, my gaming habits are simple. I have a big desktop, beefy PC, which I can play games at max, ultra stuff, but I don't, because it usually gets very hot, so I don't need to. But I usually play handheld games. So graphic fidelity is something that I've never really cared too much about. But there's a difference between graphic fidelity and poor performance. Like if you compare something like a Switch game versus like a PC game, one is poor performance, so it's having trouble rendering the game. That's a different thing to just lowering the quality of it.
I'm a Switch fan. What's wrong with Switch?
That's a whole other discussion.
Well, here's another example, because there is sometimes a barrier in terms of graphics for me. Like, for instance, Minecraft is a great example. I think I would absolutely love the gameplay loop of Minecraft. I don't like the graphics. Turn
RTX?
No. One thing I love is seeing my character really detailed and they look awesome. And this is why I really like Conan Exiles, right? And when people say compare Conan Exiles to Rust, Conan Exiles is such a prettier game that I would prefer it just because it's more enjoyable to look at than Rust.
I have to agree. Like I've played a couple of. I've got a big sci-fi fan. Like I said, I've played a couple of sci-fi games. One of which is Emporion, and it's like they're all kind of like Minecraft. They're builders, but it uses big blocks the whole way through it. And then you've got another one called Avorion. They're very closely named, where you can change the shape and the size of the blocks to the tiniest, like smaller than this microphone on ships kilometers long, because you're like, I want to light this tiniest little triangle right there. I love that level of detail. So I can understand that.
Something to mention is, though, we're also reaching the point of diminishing returns. Like, it's different from going for, like, Halo Combat Evolved to, like, this game. That is a huge leap. However, going from something like Jedi Survivor to this game, the leap is much, much closer. And we're getting to a point where people, first off, they don't have the technology. Like, we don't have the 8K televisions yet. They're not at an affordable price range for most people. We don't have the hardware to run this sort of stuff properly at its max settings. And on top of that, we actually just can't see. Like, we're getting to a point where our eyes can't just keep up anymore because they're getting so detailed. So I personally just don't. It doesn't matter that to me. I think we're at a point where I love it.
So I think with this, there may be some tricks that can be used. So for example, frame rate is a big thing.
Yeah.
If we're trying to play this at 60 or 120 or more, that to get that maximum fidelity because you're trying to get competitive and you need to see the exact frame, sure, it's going to look a little fake, but it's going to look really gamey and it's going to look a little stylized. Whereas if they go down to 24 frames a second, they use motion blur. That's all of a sudden saving a lot of computing power. I know. Oh my God! I said to gamers, go down to 24 frames a second, but it's closer. That's not what
But it's closer how to tell Nate has never played a shooter using motion blur.
Now,
what are you talking about?
As much as that sounds right, it sounds like you're right. This is not so much of a shooter as it is a sort of psychological game. It is a first-person shooter, but the gameplay is psychological choices.
Well, just on the psychological note, this footage has brought back some old kind of concerns, and for these ones, I still don't think they're big concerns, but this is the conversation that has been renewed with it, is that they think it's too realistic and therefore could desensitize people, make them more violent, so there's all that. And then the other additional one is that I think because it's so realistic, it'll cause people to get sucked in too much.
So the exact same arguments used from like GTA, San Andreas, and Vice City. This is so realistic.
The arcade cabinets of Mortal Kombat.
Even though I disagree, I can acknowledge a difference with this type of game than other ones because of how crazy realistic.
The
this
problem
really
is that, like, if I can't remember what it is, but there's like an average person spends like a huge amount of gaming per week. It's already at like a huge amount. Like, this is not going to make a difference. It's already at huge. It's
Well-
going to stay at a huge amount. It's going to continue forever to be huge amounts of gaming.
This is one of the things why I don't agree with the concerns as much, is because some of the objections is that killing people in this game is almost going to be like a snuff film. It's hyper realistic. You're seeing gross graphic violence in your face. But this is the thing: people actually get that in film already. There is insanely graphic violence in film. Saving Private Ryan, right, set a new bar for the level of graphic, gory detail that films are willing to go to, which a lot of films have been following suit. And then you think about something like The Boys more recently, which is just...
Boy,
That's too far for me. I can't get into.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen a lot of clips, and I
actually find it gross. I find it gross.
Awesome.
Well, from what I've seen of this, and I think we can find a clip, Nathan, where it actually shows some of the people that are getting shot, and you've got to make some choices, like right on the spot, and they're blurring their faces. So it's like watching a body cam footage, because the faces are a little blurred, like they're trying to hide their identity afterwards.
I think that is a worse. Like, that actually makes it worse. If you're trying to play the game and they're blurring faces, that's adding the psychological element, like you said.
Well,
Like
you're meant to be playing this retrospectively. From what I can tell, like, it's body cam footage, and you're having to maybe validate your choice in front of a court. I don't quite know. They haven't given a lot of that information, but it is very much, it's body cam footage. You're watching it after the fact, but we're rewinding the clock so you can play it.
Well, for me, just because it's more realistic, is not validation to the argument that it's going to make people more violent. They've done a lot of like test case studies, and where they looked at people and stuff like that. Violent video games do not make people more aggressive or violent. In actual fact, games like Monopoly, where there's conflict and frustration, and like brain teasers that you can't get past, can actually make people more agitated and aggressive than
I always love how it's like,
shooters.
people have never been violent until, video games were invented. Video games basically invented violence.
Roman
People-
Empire, what was
it's
that?
like, oh.
There's the other side to it is that video games legitimately is a de-stressor for people that can actually make them less violent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And simulating conflict, violence, warfare is something humans, predominantly boys, do as a pastime for fun for ages. Okay, we enjoy it.
What do you think we do? We go outside and we get a stick. And what do you think we do with that
guys,
stick?
sports is a type of warfare simulation,
Yeah,
okay,
really is.
in a safe environment and a safe way. And so it doesn't make people more violent. It's an enjoyable outlet. So I don't think it's going to be making people more violent.
There is also in that, like, yes, it is very realistic looking, which is part of that argument. But there is a lot of community feedback, and that's something that I think this particular game is going to have going for it, where it will listen to its community. One example is when the early release of this happened, they showed some of the earlier footage where he was running into the building, or the character was running into the building, ducked around a corner and looked down an alleyway or like an outside alleyway to shoot. And the pistol had a flare, what are they called?
Muzzle flash.
Thank you. Had a muzzle flash happen, and everyone in the community that knew about guns went, that's too much. It's too bright. It's too colorful. That's not what it looks like. It's more like a puff of smoke with a little flash embedded inside the smoke. And the developers changed it up. Like, they're listening to the community. So if there is a big enough percentage say, oh, we need to do this, or we need to do that because it's too much, it'll be fine. But it seems to be having a really, really good response with the community at the moment.
There's another side to the concern that people have raised, and this is a separate discussion to, does it make people more violent? It's the immersive quality of this and the potential that it could be more addictive and cause people to check out more from reality. If virtual reality is becoming more realistic...
Another hot take?
Nathan,
all right, so
no.
just before Nathan talks, Nathan loves like VR. Like, he actually has like the proper headsets and stuff. He loves VR.
It's funny you say this, because the amount of like Microsoft, Facebook, Epic, they all want a metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
No one's made it. Facebook tried so hard and they have bombed. Like,
Yes.
I feel like the concerns we have of a metaverse, another reality, isn't going to come from what everyone's concerned about. Again, it's going to be kind of like with AI art. It's going to come from an open source branch of things. People are going to curate it and control it. And if a big corporation doesn't do it, then someone in the basement will eventually do it as well.
To kind of counter your point about people who've been trying to do it for ages, there's been a lot of technology that people have tried to do again and again, and it's needed the right execution, and then it explodes. Smartphones, perfect example.
Yeah.
There were versions of smartphones that were around for a long time.
Yeah, but as soon as Apple went, check
As soon as you market it right and you present it right, it can explode.
Yes.
The difference is with VR as it currently stands, there's a physical limitation.
There is.
Like for me, example, VR headsets give me headaches at the moment. They hurt my eyes and give me headaches. Once they figure that stuff out, I think then we're on the then we're going on the track. But
that's a point that I was going to raise, because there is as realistic as this will feel, you will always know that you're looking at a screen of some type.
Exactly.
You can't eat in this world.
No, and I remember the first time I tried VR, funnily enough, on Minecraft. And I had
There's a big but to what I'm saying. Ebook.
Oh, I was going to say, like, there was an element of it, went up and then fell, and you kind of feel like you're falling a bit, but you're not. Like, your butt is sitting on a chair. And the same thing, I think there was a horse near me, and seeing a square hoof this size, like this at your face, is a little scary.
And the big but that I have to what I was saying, I know Nathan wants to say something here, is that we already have examples of people checking out of the real world and being lost in an online reality. MMOs, World of Warcraft, where there's people who literally died because they didn't eat enough because they were sucked into this world so much. And so
Elder Scrolls Online becomes like VR and like it's good.
This good?
I'm gone. Like you don't have to see me.
Are you turning up to work today?
Here we go. This is the concern. And here's an acknowledgement that the concern does exist.
But right now, physically, it hurts too. Like it hurts it gives me a headache and stuff. So I'm not even bothering with it until they fix those issues.
It's funny you say this because there is VR chat where you just hang out in a space and people now have full relationships, and it gets weird there as well.
Yeah.
So that already exists.
I mean, think about Second Life.
Things get weird on the internet,
right?
guys. Did you know?
When you include cat girls, things get weird.
But we have a video, and I'm not sure if it's going to be before or after this, I'm talking about AI, where it's going. And one of the concerns was the relationship side of things. When you combine that technology with this type of immersion...
You won't know whether you're talking to a person or whether you're talking to an AI.
Or you can make an AI NPC that is your perfect woman and that looks completely real, and you put on the glasses... Okay.
Nathan is trying to figure out how to create haptic gloves right now.
It will also be different when it's no longer virtual reality, but mixed reality. So when you can buy your own home and have your own stuff.
And the perfect, woman is sitting on the couch.
You will be living in an empty house and everything, the couch maybe is like just a block of chair or whatever, but like the paintings on your wall, the TV in your room, that's all microtransactions.
There is the difference between VR and AR.
Yeah.
So those are two different things.
Yeah.
So virtual reality is completely like your eyes are blocked out. You're just looking at a virtual reality, whereas AR for augmented reality means you've got your current reality, but it's
both.
augmented with extra things like
So if you
picture
can-
frames that move.
And look, I will be honest, that's probably quite a... We thought we were getting somewhere, but that's slowed down since. And I feel like AI is kind of more of a thing people are more invested in now than they are with XR, just mixed reality in general.
And Nathan's upset about this.
Yeah.
I'm upset because it was getting really cool, and then we stopped, and then no one cares.
How cool-
But I reckon what will happen maybe is that when people get their AI girlfriends and they're like, I want them in real life, then you'll start getting a push more to mixed reality.
Blade
and
Runner.
then-
Can't wait for it.
Blade Runner is the example, and for me, I actually don't think that's a good thing for society myself. I
don't either.
I want people to have real relationships. We can keep building society, people.
Or even the problem of owning your own property if everything's in a joint account.
Have you seen the property market?
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's in a loophole. They say, you don't have enough money to buy a house. Just buy a little empty shack.
But that's the problem. Instead of addressing the actual social problems that's making it so difficult for people to actually own a house and properties, they can get a fake one.
Yeah.
And that means they won't address the problem. Here's just a coping mechanism to deal with the crap and make the world worse.
Ready Player One. That's what we're getting.
All the Americans watching, housing's super expensive. Here, it's like
It's insane.
you got to be a multi-millionaire to buy a house.
A two-bedroom.
Yeah, 2 bedroom.
But there is
Sorry, just on that. In the city, there
Not
is
even in the
location.
city, in the suburbs.
I live in a city, Geelong, which is, that's a city of Victoria. Houses, especially centre CBD, are millions.
But
millions.
literally, in the
and
area,
it's not even the biggest city.
In the area we're in right here, couple 100,000, it's more manageable and possible. That's why I bought a house
but
because
the
it was
quality
here.
of living is
Oh,
a bit different.
quality.
I have to say, it's
Guys, the country is better. You don't want to live in the
This is quite
city.
a bit out of the city. But like talking about graphics of this quality and talking about AR, I see all of the social problems aside, I see that there could be some really amazing applications for this. Let's take, for example, LARP. You have augmented reality in LARP. You know your hit points. You know the hit points of the person you're fighting.
Live action roleplay.
Live action roleplay. So you've got foam swords. The hit points on shields and armor and everything is above the person's head, as well as their name. You can address them and
Sir Dragon Slayer 69.
but that's the thing.
No,
you don't.
holy
You actually get real
look what you've done.
dragons.
Look what
No,
you've
no,
done.
that you're right. Like,
what you've
because
done.
one of the problems with LARP is like environments. They always have to do it in the forest and everything like that. You could have a augmented reality where it's like you're in on a medieval city, and people can play monstrous characters
No, forget
that appear
playing
more
but
realistic.
forget playing monstrous characters. Actual skeletons with actual
Yes.
skeleton hitboxes. You hit them, and you're not going to feel anything unless you get a haptic sword.
See, that's all fun. I'm on board with that.
Caliber Seal, make some haptic swords. Get ahead of the curve.
Call me old-fashioned, but I want
You're
it in real
old-fashioned.
life. I want it in
You
real
want a
life.
real skeleton to
We
fight?
have the real forest. Let's go to the real forest and fight.
That's what's currently happening. You want to
Yes.
join a LARP?
Yeah, sure.
Oh my God. We're going LARP.
Blades.
With real swords, live blades?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, we have to go to Germany for that. There's a crew there I can introduce you to. They fight with live swords.
Sounds good to me.
They're
All right.
crazy.
Nice to know Tyranth. It was good to know him while he lasted. But I think graphics of this fidelity mixed in with augmented reality for all of the billion different
Be
applications.
crazy fun.
Yeah, one of the things, for at least geeks like us, LARP.
Yeah.
Fight a real dragon.
Yeah.
Ermagerd.
But yeah, like I said, and that I think there's some really fun things. But I think the concerns about actually, this is the thing. The concerns about people checking out of reality and creating virtual relationships and stuff. It's already it exists, and it might just continue the current trend. It could make it worse, and I have to acknowledge that there might be some validity to that argument, but actually might not. Might just continue where things are at, where the big concern about having false relationships and stuff, I think, comes from AI than graphics like this.
Well, it's usually for things like that. It's less the fault of a new type of technology, and it's more just something that's usually been inherently in humans for a while, and there's now an outlet in one way or another for some type of social thing that happens.
This is we're going back to the violence topic now, and I want to acknowledge it because it's out there. I kind of disagree because I think people who do this are already mentally unstable, but it's the type of people that it's so realistic that I hate my boss, and so I'm going to make my boss, and it's fully realistic, and I can then kill my boss. Again, I think someone who would do that is already mentally unstable. And it's probably already been visualizing that you
So
don't
we can-
need to play it out for someone to be pushed so far where it's dangerous that they might be willing to do.
It almost goes back to
real
that
world.
Dungeons and Dragons thing from way back in the 70s or the 80s or whatever it was. And there was someone who wasn't quite right upstairs, and they played Dungeons and Dragons, and then that ended up giving the whole D&D thing a really, really bad name because of what they did, and they blamed Dungeons and Dragons. But there's nothing wrong with that game.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's an outlet. It's a video game. It just so happens to be hyper realistic.
I'm not really interested too much in like real world, like this sort of graphics. But if this was like Doom or something like that with these graphics,
And as well, we say these
I might
graphics.
need to take some time off.
See,
I got some things to do.
Doom is already too scary for me. Like, yes, I don't like horrors. You know why I don't like horrors? They scare me. It's pretty thing. And Doom in particular, with the dark and the whole thing and everything, that's already too much for me.
There's a few different types
But
of Doom, but there was one that was jump scare filled.
Yeah, the one that was really dark and the monsters
Yeah,
would
Doom
jump
3,
out.
I think it was,
Like,
yeah.
I'm not talking about original Doom. I'm talking about
Doom 3, the scary one.
But no, actually, the fun just slaughter everything Doom. No, I could totally get in that. I'm talking about the actual real horror type things, and I don't like horrors like
Dead
that.
Space can do.
Probably not.
Hey, Shad, you want to play Backrooms?
Sounds.
We should do a VR video, Shad. I think that'd be really fun, Backrooms.
Wait, I think we can do that.
We can.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting.
No, like
just
I know-
on the horror topic, zombie apocalypse, I'm fine. It's more action stuff, but actual genuine horror.
You know, there's that
movies,
movie coming out. Was it Pope's Exorcist or something? That looks good to review.
I'm actually interested.
I think we should go watch that one.
that one
Shad.
I'm interested in.
Great. Can we do it? Or
Maybe.
review on it?
Is it out?
I don't know.
Are we going to keep a camera on Shad
Oh.
with a popcorn? Ah!
Just next week though, Guardians of the Galaxy.
I love finding out that our weeks are short.
Thursdays.
But no, you're talking about zombie. There's a new game that's come out, Dead Island 2. It's a zombie game.
Right, yeah, this one
And
that I have on
it looks, these are the environments.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow.
That looks like renders of a shopping center. That
Like-
doesn't look like real.
Really? No.
No, but I mean. Okay, so renders, shush. What I mean by that.
Pictures of a shopping center.
Shush. What I mean by that is it looks like a computer has spent a couple of hours making a single image.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
this is live gameplay.
In-game
Oh, I
footage.
have to clarify myself so often around this gentleman.
But you want a fun fact about this game? It's made on Unreal Engine 4, the old version.
Wow. Wow.
Another
They've
fun
just
fact about this
optimized.
game, I could get it for free, but it was on Epic Games, so I don't want it anymore.
Ah,
I was going to get it on the weekend, and then I realized there was Epic Games, and I didn't
Yeah,
want to
I'm
buy
like,
it. So
I don't
I'm
want
going to
it
wait till
anymore.
2024 now.
I realize there was so much
literally got it
bias
for
here
free.
against me.
It's so slow, the launch run.
Okay,
I hate it.
those seems objective criticisms because I'm not against competition, and I'm glad that there's more competition. And
It's just
platforms
not
and
as
everything.
good.
But
It's
if it just performs, we're
It's just not competitive. That's the issue with the
because
competition.
I haven't bothered to use it because I am one of those old dog new tricks things. I get stuck. I'm still using SketchUp, and I know Blender is free and been available for ages, but
if you can't make a
I
box
also-
and pull it up,
I'm
you're done.
comfortable.
You can just make a box.
I'm very
Shush.
comfortable with my.
I'll show you. I'll show you my Blender
Programs.
skills.
I also don't like launches. Like, I hate EA and Rockstars and all these people's launches. I just
Give
don't
me a
like.
Steam. Let me click it.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Well,
I want a monopoly.
seeing as though we are jumping off topic now, I think we've talked about the actual topic of the video to its conclusion now.
Yes.
Really interesting. I think for the most part it looks cool and fun, and I'm like, all right, bring on hyper-immersive games. I think a lot of the concerns are, just the same old arguments, and maybe only one has some validity, but yeah, I don't think it's huge, and yeah.
And just remember, like, this game looks realistic because it is made to look like it's film on a GoPro. The lighting is very like everything they've made this game has lent into looking realistic. If you want to go try and make a fantasy world with the same thing, it's not as simple as dragging and dropping stuff in.
You don't get your doom yet.
Well, I don't.
Yeah,
Well,
and also the other thing too, very few people, a lot of environments, a lot of static stuff. As soon as you involve humans,
yeah.
things get way more difficult.
Yeah.
And there may be a reason why like faces are blurred.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think it
because-
is. I think
yeah.
it's exactly like
It is
Nathan's
because
saying.
they're using
they're
many
leaning,
humans.
they're
Like, it's-
leaning into things. It's the Jurassic Park thing again. Like
Yeah.
they lent into certain techniques because it just sucks you into the realism.
Like I said before, like it's the same thing we hear every 10 years. It's like, oh, it's too violent, it's too bad, and then another 10 years pass and it's going
I think that's everything though.
That is. And so let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time. And as always, stay on watch.